It's all well and good to have a mission-based business and to follow your passion. But at the end of the day, people have to buy from you. You have to make revenue in order to continue doing your work in the world and serving more people. You're gonna love today's episode, especially if you're a service professional, because I'll be talking with Leah Neaderthal, sales coach for women, about how to get over sales shyness, how to put a sales process in place, and what is it and why you need one, and how you can gain the confidence and the organization you need to close more deals, serve more people, and do more of your work. Stay tuned. Welcome to today's episode where we're going to talk about all things sales, how to do it, how to put a process in place, and how to manage a pipeline. I am here with my wonderful guest, Leah Neaderthal. She is a sales coach for women and helps women entrepreneurs get more clients, get paid with their worth, and sell more deals. So welcome, Leah. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
This is great. Leah and I have been virtual colleagues for a while now, I guess, sharing some notes about putting together virtual courses, sharing some tips and tricks about tools, which we're going to talk about in today's interview. And I am currently a student of Leah's. Yes, a marketing person is a sales student in her wonderful 10-week course called Signed, which we're going to talk about throughout this interview, and I'm going to also have links for you below on that. But it's a wonderful thing. Again, welcome, Leah. Tell us a little bit about your work. You know, you talk about yourself as a sales coach for women, and we all know that men can use a lot of sales coaching as well. So talk to us a little bit about what that means to you, and also how your advice applies. Really, it's not really gender specific.
You're right. So there's a lot of selling that is a mystery when you start your own business, whether you're a man or a woman. And when I say sales coach for women, what I mean is less about like selling a feminine way or anything like that. What I mean is that one of the things that holds people back in selling instead of getting the clients that they want for their business is a lot of the mindset stuff, a lot of psychological things. And I think women, in my personal experience and with all the women I work with, women have an extra layer of head junk that they have to work through in order to feel comfortable in this space. Everything from things that we have internalized growing up about what women should and shouldn't do, how we should and not, and the things that we bring with us from childhood or our families or past jobs or anything like that. So once we can work through that, then we can get down to the meat of it. And I find that women have just a little bit more of that than men do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, because a lot of the things that we think we need to do or should do, and in some cases we do need to do to sell effectively, are kind of the opposite of what many women are socialized to believe that they should act, how they should act. I know that, personally for me, I'm a very strong, independent woman, as you know, and I've had problems with negotiation or asking for what I'm worth, and overcoming those obstacles is really key to being able to make more sales and, more importantly, make those sales count. So what I love about your work, Leah, is I always feel like your work kind of picks up where mine leaves off. I'm working with folks on their brand awareness and their positioning and their messaging. But then as soon as they get all that in place and they get that foundation, they need to start getting those sales in. They need to start moving people down that sales cycle, which brand can really help as air cover, I always say, to the entire sales cycle, but really especially at the beginning of it. And so I love your work in that it gives people a kind of a practical process and a practical methodology to actually make that happen and not feel so scary. So I'm really excited about today's talk.
Yeah, and somebody like me benefits tremendously from the incredible work that you're doing because, you and as you know from the course, the first thing we do is start with the purchase funnel, right? Awareness to familiarity, consideration, purchase, and loyalty. And without, where I pick up is really in consideration to purchase to loyalty, right? I'm not the girl who's like doing Facebook ads and all these other things, really. It's really about taking it to that sales conversation. But that work benefits so tremendously from the type of air cover that you're talking about.
Great. And we should talk a little bit about the fact that you focus primarily on working with people that are selling perhaps into businesses, service providers. Can you talk a little bit before we get going about that relationship of whether you're selling a product, maybe someone watching this video is a retail business or a brick and mortar business, and someone else watching this video is a coach or a consultant. Talk a little bit about your philosophy and how it applies to both of those arenas.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that selling a service, and especially when the service is yourself, right, is one of the hardest things that you have to do as a business owner. And if you can master that, then you can take that into other arenas. You can take it into selling a product. You can take it into selling a course that might be more of a transactional sale. You can take it into a retail business, because when you can, because mastering that, face-to-face or person-to-person sale requires getting comfortable with it, requires asking the right questions, requires leading somebody to actually say yes. And when you can master it from person to person or for a service, you can translate that to other things, but it's very difficult to go the other way around.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So let's talk about the fact that you and I both work with really smart, talented people who are really good at what they do and at delivering the service that they provide. Why is it that so many of those people struggle with the concept of sales or struggle with actually getting clients in the door on a consistent basis?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. The first of which is they've never had to do it. And so when they start their business and they think, this should be easy. Well, why do we put that pressure on ourselves? We've never had to do that. Maybe we've worked for companies where there was a sales function or a sales department, and this just wasn't part of our work, right? This wasn't part of our role.
Right.
Why I also do work with people who are in companies who maybe get promoted and now they have business development responsibility, and they're like, well, how do I do that, right? So the first is they've never had to do it. The second is we all have these images and this these experiences of salespeople who we did not like, right? People who made us feel salesy, made us feel gross, made us feel like they knew what we needed more than we knew what we needed, right?
For sure.
It wouldn't take no for an answer. So that's the sort of the baggage that we bring with us to the sales process. And nobody wants to feel that way, but they don't know the other way, right? Back to the whole, never learned it. So those are two reasons why it's hard to even get started.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important point of, I've talked about this in the past, especially with my clients, of you could be really good at what you do, but it doesn't mean you don't need some help or education around running a business. So, the person who loves to bake cupcakes all day long and is really good at it decides to launch a business, or, in the product world, in the retail world, it doesn't mean they're good at running a business. It means they're good at baking cupcakes. So you could insert whatever skill or talent in there, and I myself struggle with it. I've been working with my business for more than 10 years, and I'm really good at branding and marketing. But when it comes to some of the business stuff, as most of my viewers and my readers know, I'm pretty transparent about where I seek help from experts like you on getting good at those things that maybe just don't come naturally for us. And maybe they shouldn't,
Oh, of course. What sort of pressure could you put on yourself? I mean, I am really good at, one thing, but I've never played the cello. So why would I pick up the cello and just expect that I could be good at it? Right. I think also as business owners, there are certain people that we sort of expect to have to, look to, an accountant. I'm never going to be good at accounting. Right. Facebook ads, I'm really transparent. I never am going to be good at Facebook ads, nor do I want to be.
I don't want to be. Yeah, exactly.
So, but those are some of a couple, those roles that we just understand it's okay to look to. Right. But then there's this other part that's, that's it's not part of our sort of narrative as business owners, that it's okay to help. And you mentioned it before. Of course, as a marketing and, branding coach, you would still need a coach. I'm a big believer that every business coach needs a coach.
Right. For sure. So, you touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the other myths that are holding some of these entrepreneurs and marketers back from really making sales work for them? What do you think they are sometimes telling themselves about the sales process, or about managing a pipeline, or about closing deals, or negotiating good rates? What are some of the things your clients tell you that you quickly see are what's getting in their own way?
Yeah, there are a couple that I hear a lot. So the first is that selling is either something you have or you don't, right? If any of your listeners or viewers have ever thought, well, I'm just not a salesperson, then they've probably sort of been repeating this myth and not even knowing it. And what we found is that and now there's research to support that anybody can learn anything. I mean, and I'm the biggest example of this. My whole story is I've never been a salesperson ever. I'm a marketer who worked in corporate marketing, and I had to teach myself how to sell. My clients are learning this all day. But I go back to this book in particular that if your viewers are intellectually curious, and I have a feeling they are, there's this amazing book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, where she talks about growth mindset and talent mindset, and the idea that even if you are raised to think that talent is innate, or you are one way or you aren't, then you can really change your mindset and adopt a mindset that lets you learn and be good at anything. So that's one myth, that selling is either something you have or you don't, and but that is a myth. The other very sort of more tactical myth that gets into people's way is that it's really all about leads. It's only about leads. And I hear this a lot, like, I just need to be talking to more people. Well, that's also a myth, because it's only one small part of the sales process. Of course, you can't sell to nobody, right? You have to have leads. But I always ask people, okay, if you think it's really about leads, let's say I sent 1,000 leads your way tomorrow, and you woke up to 1,000 people who filled out your contact us form. How would you be able to identify who's your ideal client? How would you be able to take the ones that you really wanted and move them along the sales process, keep them from falling off or ghosting or, going quiet? How would you be able to price your work so that it's exceptionally profitable for you? And how would you be able to help them all, the ones that you wanted, help them say yes? Right. So there are a lot of stages of this. Leads is an important one, but it's not just about leads.
Right. It's not just about the quantity that you get in. It's sort of, you have to know what to do with them once they show up at your door, and how do you eventually convert them into sales. So that's actually a great segue into, let's talk about how you define a sales process. What is it? Why do people need one? And how do they start to put one together?
So a sales process is the series of steps that you take your clients through to help them say yes. So a sales process might start with first contact, whatever the first contact is. Sometimes, a lot of people get leads through referrals. Some people might fill out a contact us form. They might download something, whatever it is. But it's that series of steps. Basically, you take first contact and yes, and then the sales process constitutes the steps in the middle. And it's different for every business. But it's important to know the sales process, your particular sales process, because when you know what the steps are, you can do a couple things. First is you can start to lead your client. It's really important. Clients don't know sometimes how to buy from you or how to say yes to you. So you can start to lead the client through the sales process. When you know the sales process, you can start to see what's called your pipeline. And your pipeline is sort of the steps of the sales process plus the opportunities, the potential clients you're talking to. And the pipeline shows you what potential revenue you have you stand to make. And once you can see that, then what should you be doing to get more sales, to get more clients? Are there people? Do you need more people in the pipeline? Are there people at the end who are about to say yes, and you need to get people at the beginning? Are you even pursuing enough potential clients? Are you having enough conversations to make the money that you want to make? These are all really important questions that are solved by the sales process and the pipeline.
Well, and I love this because it kind of goes by many names, as I've talked about it in terms of like the marketing funnel or the sales funnel or whatever, what have you, because it often does start with sort of a larger group of people that then funnel down into the deals that you actually close. I think, and you could probably speak to this, one of the biggest mistakes people think is that one lead equals one sale. And that's not always the case. So how you walk them through this journey of being able to say yes to you is so important. And what's great about mapping it out is you can see what you need to do, or what assets you need, or what marketing materials are going to help them along the stages of the process, help move them forward. So for example, when I used to work in corporate, and we worked with enterprise software sales reps, we talked about what were the different marketing materials that were needed at different stages. You know, case studies, for example, are not necessarily needed at initial contact. They might be needed later in the process when people are starting to warm up to the idea and understand how you might be able to solve their problem. Now they require proof. So just sort of the different assets you need at different stages of the process are so important, because again, it's not just like one, it necessarily goes from one conversation to an instant sale. So I love that you have your clients, and especially your students in Signed, map out what is their process. Because as you say, you have a process, whether you have it mapped out or not. You just need to be more intentional about it, right? And so what do you see people doing when they say, oh, I'm fine, I don't need a sales process? What normally is happening in their business that you see the need for them to start maybe articulating this process a little better, or documenting this process a little bit better?
Yeah. Well, it might be an indication of a couple things. Okay. I think that, when people say I don't need a sales process, it probably means that they are tracking it or keeping tabs on the potential opportunities in a few different ways. Maybe they're just remembering, right? Maybe they are looking, holding it in their inbox, right? Their email inbox. And I'm a big believer that inbox is the worst way to track work. It's the worst way to track people. One of the things that it tells me is perhaps that they're not pursuing that many opportunities. They're not having that many conversations.
Right.
Because if they were flooded with potential clients, they would be seeking a means to be more organized.
Right. Right. I love that.
I don't know if that answers your question. So.
No, it totally does. And I think that that's probably a valuable lesson for everyone, myself included, because I think you're absolutely right. I think if you're at the point where you've got the number of opportunities that you need to sustain your business, you need a better way to organize moving those opportunities through the process.
Totally. And so when people sort of say to me with pride that they don't need a sales process, they might be very proud of that, but I think it's an issue, a window into an underlying issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, given that, how should people think about or manage their pipeline? So we talked about the fact that your pipeline is sort of the pool of opportunities that you have out there, and they might be at varying stages, right? Or do you consider the pipeline anyone that's in the sales process right now?
I consider anyone who's in the sales process right now. And when I say in the sales process, it's somebody who you are actively having conversations with. If somebody downloaded something, or you got a referral and you're sort of trying to schedule, or you're not really sure, whatever. That's not an active sales opportunity. The pipeline consists of people who are actively evaluating working with you. And when I think about, how to sort of think about the pipeline, you said something that was really important. It's not one lead to one client. And in fact, if you want to, there's an idea called pipeline coverage, which we talk about in Signed, where it's this idea that in order to make a certain amount, you have to have enough in your pipeline to cover that amount. So if you worked at an enterprise sales team, for example, and you wanted to make $1 million, right?
Right. It was 3X. We were held accountable. We had to have the pipeline for the sales reps filled 3X what their number actually was. So
right. So
$3 million in the pipeline of opportunities so that they could make $1 million.
Exactly. And the sort of enterprise sales rule of thumb is anywhere from 3X to 5X, I've seen. Now, that's for huge sales teams. So for an entrepreneur who's running his or her own business, it's 2 to 3X. But what that means is if you want to make $50,000 or let's say $50,000 in the next 6 months, and you only are talking to 5 people, and the typical project that you do is $10,000, then you currently have $50,000 in your pipeline. If that's all you have in your pipeline, you're not going to make $50,000. You need between 2 and 3 times that. So if you want to make $50,000 in the next 6 months, you need to have between $100,000 and $150,000 in your pipeline. in our example, each of your projects is roughly $10,000. That means you have to have between 10 and 15 active sales conversations in your pipeline in order to have a healthy pipeline and be on track to make the money that you want to make.
So this leads to a good question that I think a lot of people will have watching this. It's like, okay, that's great. I'm on board. I get that I need, let's say someone wants to make, let's use your scenario. Someone wants to make $100,000. Their average engagement cost is $10,000. So they can't just have 10 deals in their pipeline. They might have to have 20 conversations or 20 deals in their pipeline. So they go, great. I get it, Leah. I'm totally on board. There's nothing in my pipeline right now. What do I do? Like what might be a good first step for them to take to start building that pipeline and starting those conversations?
Yeah. Well, so the first thing, and from my work that I'm not like a get 10 clients tomorrow.
Right.
I don't have, my work is not around like silver bullets and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody says, all right, I really don't have anything, what do I do? The first thing I encourage them to think about is the fact that, a lot of people will tell you to do Facebook ads or, do this on LinkedIn and start prospecting. The thing is, oftentimes there are people in our world who either want to refer us or want to hire us, and we have not given them the tools to do so. And so what I would say is, make sure that every single person in your network knows what you do, knows who you work with, knows the value you provide to your clients, and knows the way that they can refer work to you. That's the first thing, because, I often say to people, you feel like you have to go out and buy more land when you're sitting on a gold mine. So that's the first thing. And then, as I talk about in science, there are other ways that you can start to do very targeted strategic prospecting for your ideal clients. There are ways that you can reach out to your network on a more regular basis. And there are ways that you can turn every single asset into a marketing channel for leads using like lead magnets.
Absolutely. I love it. I mean, and this kind of gets into lead gen, but I think that's such an important thing of people like listening to this going, oh no, I have no pipeline. What do I do? So I wanted to get
a lot of people come to me and they say, I have a list of people I should probably reach out to, but I don't know what to say and I haven't done it.
Yeah.
Or, especially when you leave corporate, you have a list of people who you've possibly worked with before, your past clients, whatever it is. And a lot of people just look at that list and they spend months or years just staring at it, not sure what to do.
Right.
And so that's where I say your network is the most valuable asset that you have for referrals. And that's what I encourage folks to do.
That's great. I love that. I mean, yeah, you sort of got to start where you are and leverage the people who already know, like, and trust your brand and believe in what you do. And like you said, give them the tools to make it easy. Don't just say, hey, if you know anybody, send them my way. But I know when I've asked for referrals in the past, I will offer people a little blurb they can send to someone on my behalf, make it really easy. Just like I've talked about in the past about making it easy for people to promote you, make it really easy for people to refer you and help you start building that pipeline. Also, I think, and this is something you talk about too, we like to think we're top of mind for the people that we know, but we're not. We know how busy we are. So yes, someone might have been a really good friend of yours or might still be a really good friend of yours. And I've had this happen to me, and they actually don't know what the heck you do. Like you haven't actually sat down, you think, oh, they're seeing my LinkedIn posts or they know exactly what I'm up to. And they don't. They have a life. Like they're doing their own thing. So you need to sort of proactively keep stoking those fires and reaching out to those people and reminding them that A, you're there, and B, this is what you do and who you help. And if they know anyone that fits this description or is looking to solve this problem, then please send them my way, and here's some information that'll help you do that. So I really love that whole leveraging of your network as the first step. Yeah. And your network can even be, just one note on that, if you're just starting out, your network is people who know you professionally. Like even if they weren't necessarily like a former client or whatever, it's reaching out to those people, because people will often say like, I don't have any, I haven't had any clients that can refer me to anyone else, but people have worked with you in the past. They know you, right? So what do you say about that? Like if people are like, oh, I'm just starting out and...
Yeah, I think that you should be giving every single person the tools. Every single person might know, let's say every person knows one person who might benefit from your work, right? That's a lot of potential conversations right there. And I think what I hear a lot, and maybe you hear this too, is I want to reach out, but I don't want to bother anybody.
Yes.
Right? Back to that sort of mental mindset junk, right? That we have to sort of fight through. So that, I think the antidote to that is really being clear about the work that you do in terms of value. Because it's the difference between saying, I do branding, you want some?
Yeah.
Like,
and leave it up to them to figure it out, right?
Yeah. Right. It's the difference between saying, I do branding, you want some, and saying, I help small businesses get really clear on their message so that they can create, a cohesive strategy that drives results, or whatever it is for your
all that good stuff. Right? Yeah, all the benefits, right? Yeah,
all the benefits. So if you can get really clear on the value, that's the antidote to the I'm just bothering somebody. Because if you think about it, as service providers, it's our response. If our work creates value, right? It is, and people can benefit from that value for their business or their life. It is our responsibility to share that with people.
Absolutely, because if they need what you've got, you owe it to them to let them know you have it and you can help solve their problem. And no one's going to get mad at you for telling them this is a problem you solve. And if they don't have that problem, they're not going to never speak to you again. So I always, talk about what's the worst thing that can happen is just they don't know anyone that fits the bill for what you need, but they're not going to be mad that you asked for if they know anyone who needs this help. So I want to talk a little bit about pricing, even though I know that you're mostly focused on sales, but you also help your clients with figuring out how to get paid what they're worth. And I've talked about pricing in terms of it being a brand decision because your pricing does say something about the value and the expectation of what you offer. And so, if depending on who your ideal client is, you have to marry the pricing that you're offering with the value that you're providing. And I've even had some of these conversations lately where a couple of prospects were saying, oh, wow, your service offering sounds great, but I don't think we are the ideal client for you because our budgets are X. That isn't an opening for me to reduce my price. That's an opening for me to say, well, I price it this way because it's about the value and this is what it leads to. So tell me a little bit about pricing and how people should be better protecting their price during the sales process.
Yeah, I think pricing is so important because price, you can't talk about selling or getting clients without pricing. There are, because my work is not about helping you get fully booked or anything like that. I don't want my clients to be just busy with crap clients, not making enough, the money that they really want to be making. Yeah. So, so that's why it's a big part of Signed. It's part of everything that I do is helping people get paid more, bigger numbers, even the numbers they're probably a little scared of, to charge and get paid those numbers.
Right.
And when I think about pricing for, business owners, it really does go back to the value. It's kind of like what you said. It's like, you price for the value that you provide your clients. What will they be able to do as a result of your work that they can't currently do? What negative outcome will they be able to avoid that without your work they would run right into it? And what's the price, what's the cost for them, right? I'm sorry, what's the what is that benefit to the business or the individual to solve that problem, right? To that outcome or avoid that negative outcome. Right. And when you can think about it like that, it helps you really see the potential. Now you're not pricing on deliverables or hours or anything like that. And a big part of this also is when you think about what we call value-based pricing, right? That actually, you might charge more because you're, delivering more value, but it also creates a better client relationship. Because you think about when you charge based on hours or deliverables, you and the client are at odds with how you're pricing. So the client wants to get the outcomes that they want, and you want to make money, right? And those are different. Well, when you charge based on value, then the client wants the outcomes and you want the outcomes, and you are going in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's watching the clock. Nobody is nitpicking here and there. The client doesn't have to make a financial decision every time they ask for your help.
Right.
So you're both going in the same direction. And so it's an unintended benefit of really pricing for value and not for, hours.
Yeah. And I mean, I see even a lot of my clients making this mistake of like, oh, but this project only takes me X number of hours. And it's like, no, they're not paying you for how much time it takes you to do something, or even how easy something is for you to do. They need to pay for the benefit that they get from doing that work. And so, a lot of people will, for like a very value-driven workshop, for example, they'll say, well, I'll only charge them 2 hours of my time because the workshop only takes 2 hours. It's like, this is going to catapult their business to make millions of dollars. Like, you need to charge what that's worth. And kind of getting back to what I started with, which is really about this being a brand perception. If you're only charging like $200 for a workshop that's supposed to transform somebody's business, I'm going to be a little bit skeptical of that claim, versus if something seems like it's in line with my thinking of how much skin we're willing to put in the game. And, I've been on that side. I've been a client where I've had to make those investments. And I will tell you that I have looked at proposals and have not always just taken the cheapest one. Because if I see the cheapest one in a sea of these other proposals, I'm thinking kind of, what's wrong with that? What am I not getting from that? So I think that that's a really important perspective to put on that. And what I love about you helping your clients is getting them to think about that as they go along. Kind of to go back to the secondary part of this question is, how do you advise your clients during the sales process, or what can sometimes be a tense-filled negotiation process? What are some tips you give people to protect their price?
Yeah. So I think that pricing is something that really factors into every stage of this. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So on a very tactical level, how do you protect your price? Well, the first thing is, don't negotiate against yourself. Oftentimes, when you're putting together a proposal, you might write down what you want, and then you say, "Oh, they'll never say yes to that." And
exactly.
You say, "Oh, they'll never say yes to that," and you're negotiating against yourself before the client even sees it. Now, the client has every right to negotiate, but that's their right. That's their job, not your job to negotiate against yourself.
Right. I love that.
The other thing is, when you sort of protect your price, even at the beginning. For example, I always encourage and I teach people how to have the price conversation in the first discovery call. Because it's so important to talk price, which makes a lot of people antsy, and gain alignment on price. So I also talk about pricing a way to protect your price. It comes at the very beginning, and I teach people, and it's very important to me to help people feel comfortable and have the tools to have the price conversation in the first discovery call, and to gain alignment on price. Because if you don't talk about price, a lot of people will skip the price conversation and then put together a proposal or put together a solution later. That's when the whole negotiating against yourself comes in. Can have the price conversation and get an alignment on that, then that you and the client are in the same price ballpark.
Absolutely.
So it's really worth having that conversation, because it will protect your price later.
Right. And I, and we haven't necessarily gotten to this part in Signed, but how I've run my business and how I, just from my experience working with sales enablement, I will, in the discovery call, ask what their budget is for this project. And if they say they don't have a budget, that tells me two things. It tells me, one, that they're not necessarily planning for this, or maybe it's not as much of a priority as they're indicating that it is. But number two, it tells me, okay, they don't have a budget for this. I need to lead them. I need to tell them what this work is worth, because maybe they don't know what they don't know, right? And that happens a lot in my work, because people don't really know what a brand strategy project costs, right? So the other thing is, if they tell me their budget is $500 or $1,000, I can very quickly say, I don't know if this is the right fit for you. And then they are within their right to say, well, let's talk about this some more, and then maybe we can find the money. So I've had that conversation too. So I find that just not necessarily telling them my price in the initial conversation, but asking them what their budget is or what they're expecting to spend is at least a good starting point to understand where their head is. Do you agree with that approach?
I think that there are parts of that that work really well.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that I encourage, and you'll see it in sign, I encourage people not to ask what the budget is.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage them to say, well, first of all, to know their pricing. That's the first step.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right. To know their pricing, and at least have benchmarks.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage people to say, my price based on what you've shared with me. And so assuming that you've uncovered the value, you're not just responding to like, I need 3 blog posts or whatever.
Right.
Assuming that you've uncovered the real value that they're looking for, and you've gone through the discovery process, you can say, based on what you've shared with me, my work, it starts at X, and then the key question is that what you were thinking? Is that what you were expecting? And using that as a way to anchor the price at what you want to get paid, right? And they can go up or down. And then, because I think that people, it's exactly like you said, people don't know oftentimes what things cost.
Right.
So the number that they came up with for a brand strategy proposal or brand strategy project could be off the wall.
Right.
So it is up to us. It absolutely is up to us to anchor the price at what we know will deliver value for them and will also be profitable for our business.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. So kind of to cap this off a little bit, well, actually, before we get to that, what are some other things you see people struggle with when negotiations get tough? So they're in the sales process, the prospect is engaged, they're going a little bit of back and forth. What are some pitfalls in the negotiation process that you see entrepreneurs or business owners falling into, and how can they avoid it?
So one important pitfall is, of course, saying yes because you don't have enough in your pipeline. Right? This is why all of these things are really connected, because if you are only talking to 1 or 2 clients, potential clients, and you send a proposal to one and they want to negotiate down and, drop the price or cut it in half, and you really only have this other potential client, you're going to be really inclined to say yes to that proposal, even if it's not advantageous for your business. So the best, it sounds really weird, but the best antidote to protecting your price and the best antidote to bad negotiating is having enough in your pipeline.
Right. Because it takes the pressure off, right? You don't feel like every deal is so precious that you have to get it signed.
Yeah.
So I love that. I mean, I think that is so important. It takes away that weight of, I have to find a way to make this project work. And you're trying to fit, a square peg into a round hole where it might not work for you and it might not work for the client. So I love that. So what tools make sense for making sales and managing this consistent pipeline? What are some go-tos for you that you can recommend? I know you talk a lot about being able to automate a lot of the process as you can, but what are some of the tools that you really feel someone needs to have, a service provider really needs to have, to ensure that they have a healthy pipeline, to ensure that they can manage the sales process more effectively, and to close more deals?
Yeah, so there are 2 that really I think are the must-haves. The first is a CRM, customer relationship management software, which is a way that you can track and manage the opportunities. And when I say opportunities, I mean potential clients, but you can track and manage the opportunities that you're, pursuing, and you can see at a glance who's in your pipeline, how much revenue are you pursuing, all of that. And it pairs it with, your contacts and your tasks and all of your correspondence, so that every piece of information that you might need to to build and manage your pipeline is right there. When your CRM is set up well, it can become a revenue engine for you as a service provider, much more than some of the other things that the sort of workarounds that I see with like people with their spreadsheets or their email or Post-its or whatever.
Exactly.
That's the first thing. And there are a lot of CRMs out there that are designed for small businesses or solopreneurs and are really cost effective. The second thing I would encourage people to do and have is a document signing program. So when you send a proposal, I encourage people to give everyone the tools to say yes right there, right? So sending it via a doc signing proposal or doc signing platform like HelloSign or EchoSign or Sign Now, and there are a lot of these out there.
DocuSign,
DocuSign, yeah, they're cost effective. They save so much time and energy, and they help people sign your proposals faster. One of my students just got finished with Sign, and during the program, she implemented a document signing program, and she determined that it saves her about 3 hours per contract.
Wow.
And people were sending her back the contract so much faster, and it saves her 3 hours. Now she's a service provider, but she serves about 150 clients a year.
Wow.
So 3 hours times 150 clients, she's going to go on vacation for a month.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. So a good CRM and a good document signing platform.
Yes. If you do nothing else.
Nothing else, right. Right. And I know that for you too, I mean, this is really getting into sort of the lead gen and an awareness component, but having that really good email marketing system is really important too, to stay in touch and stay top of mind with that warm audience. So is your CRM system linked up with your email platform?
So yes, so there are a couple different, I actually have 2 CRMs because I'm that neurotic, but so it used to be the case that CRM was over here and email marketing was over here, and like marry the two shall meet, right? Now there are more systems out there that pair the two. Nice. And it's really nice when you have that, because you can manage your pipeline and do your email marketing and marketing automation. And then you can see, because the system will allow you to set up things like if somebody's opening every single email of yours, but they're not currently in your pipeline, that might be a good person.
You need to reach out to them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. And thank you for reminding me that like email marketing is so important. Even if it's off in a different universe, it's important, but it's even more effective when paired with the CRM.
I love that. I mean, I think that's the key. I know for me, that's a missing link, quite frankly. My things are completely separate, but understanding who are those people that are opening my email every week? And do I need to do sort of a targeted outreach to them to say, hey, here's some ways I can help you, or I see that, thank you so much for opening all these emails. And because if they're devouring your information, you want to tap into that, and you want to be able to reach out to that person proactively, even if they're not officially in your pipeline. So I love that. Okay, great. So how can people learn more about you and find out more about Signed?
Well, people can find out about me at my website, which is smartgetspaid.com. And the program Signed is at smartgetspaid.com/signed. It's also, if you just go to the Get Help section on my website.
Great. And I'll put the links below here. And we should also mention that you have a free Facebook community.
I do. It's search for Smart Gets Paid on Facebook and you'll find it. It's a wonderful community for entrepreneurs, service providers, people who want to get better at signing clients and do that in a supportive community.
Well, thank you so much for all this great information today, Leah. We really appreciate it. And everyone check out the links below and get in touch with Leah and close more deals. Take care.
Thanks.